Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sisters of the Strange. I'm Shae.
I'm Landrey.
She's on the struggle bus today.
Yeah, my voice is going to be in and out. It's not super bad. It's better. Yesterday, it was not there, and then when it was there, I sounded like a man. So I'm doing better.
It sounds pretty normal to me.
I'm doing better today. The only thing is sometimes like I'm talking, and then there's like snot right here, and it like falls further down, and then it kind of messes with my voice.
Ew.
Like I have to like take a second and swallow. But it also like to like exert my air like hurts my chest and it hurts my back because I had like an asthma attack the other day, and that's what did this to my voice. I was having asthma and an allergy attack, and I didn't want to use my inhaler yet because I knew I'd have to use it again.
We wanted to wait, space it out a little bit.
Yes, because it makes me like jittery. You know?
Well, it is that time of year where bodies just be giving out.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'm gonna take a
break.
Take 5. You keep doing you. I'm just gonna ruin everything.
I'm surprised I've even surpassed the flu for this long. I'm surprised that I haven't gotten it yet because I get whatever.
I'm proud of you, especially since I had it.
Yeah,
Damien had it.
I was around you sick, and then I was around you whenever Damien was sick.
Yeah,
and I didn't, and I'm shook.
Shooketh.
Yeah, and even right now, I'm like not necessarily sick. It's more of like an allergy sick.
Yeah,
and I'm like, why have I not gotten hit by this? Especially having Landon in my house, and he never washes his hands. I would have figured I'd have gotten it.
Just don't question it.
The other day, he came out of the bathroom, and I said, "Go wash your hands," and he was like, "What?" And I said, "Go wash your hands. You never wash your hands. I hear you go to the bathroom and you never wash your hands.
Dirty boy.
Go wash your hands." Yeah, and then he's like, I'll just knock on his door. I refuse to open his bedroom door, and he's like, "Just open the door," and I'm like, "I'm not touching your door handle. I don't want to
get stink bombed.
I'm not
stink bombed.
Which is I'm not touching your door handle, man. I touched it once and it was like weird feeling.
Ew.
And so I'm not.
Ew, boys are gross. Teenage boys are gross.
Yeah, I know. I have all the Glade Sensies in his room. I know they're horrible for his testosterone, but I'm like, stink.
You stink. They do. Boys
My house
stink.
will not smell. It will not. Not because of you.
Not having it.
Nope.
Did you hear?
The Jack the Ripper stuff?
The Ripper?
Yeah.
So we were talking, she had mentioned it last week in the episode saying like, oh, well, there's like this theory that H.H. Holmes and Jack the Ripper are the same person. There was like a whole documentary about it. She's like, it's not feasible for me. Like, I just don't believe it. It doesn't make sense. I had some people like come to me saying like, oh, he's like 100% Jack the Ripper. And I'm like, why? Because like, I don't know. Like, truly, like, give me the information. And then literally like 2 days later, there's like this breaking news that they found a DNA match to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And it's not H.H. Holmes.
No.
So you're right.
Well, so the documentary I watched, there was someone who was like, this is one of the scarves, which is what they have the DNA
shawl.
on. Yes. And they were like, this is the DNA of Jack the Ripper is on here, and the girl. It's on, like, her DNA as well is on there. And so the great-great-grandson of H.H. Holmes is who was trying to debunk this whole thing and be like, this is why.
Yeah.
And he tested his DNA to it, and it didn't match.
So why would he still like die on that hill? I don't know. But the DNA evidence from the shawl was linked to the murders and matched the DNA of a man named Aaron Kosminski, who was a Polish barber who was a suspect of it, like initially a suspect, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And then he was like cleared or whatever, but his DNA matched it. So they found Jack the Ripper, which is freaking insane.
Yeah.
First of all.
Oh, barber makes so much sense, though, because I think they were all, like, sliced.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, all their necks were sliced, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. But.
That's like a
But he also did, like, I'm pretty sure they all were, like, dissected in a weird way, which is why it was also why people thought it was H.H. Holmes, is because he had a, like, doctorate. Was clearly weird about dissection.
Like, dissecting people. Yeah. So a historian named Russell Edwards had the shawl that was found at the murder scene of Catherine Eddowes, which I guess is that woman they are talking about. And he had hired somebody to extract the DNA from the shawl and then compared the DNA to DNA that he was provided by Kosminski's great-great-granddaughter, which still lines up with the timeline, which is weird.
Yeah.
And so they matched it. But yeah, he was a Polish immigrant who worked as a barber in Whitechapel, England, and died in a mental health facility in 1919. He was schizophrenic.
Okay, well, that also makes sense.
Yeah.
Throw that in there.
The discovery has led to calls for a legal inquest to close the case.
That's crazy.
That's wild. I can't believe that. That is like decades old, like the longest like cold case ever.
Now I need someone to solve DB Cooper now.
Let's go.
Be for real.
Let's go. Yeah, I think that's wild. And it was just like, I haven't really like taken it in until like just now, because I had like seen the news and then I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, we're going to talk about it. But now that I'm like talking about it, I'm like, It's over.
Yeah, what the hell?
They found him. That's crazy.
I think it's crazy. Like years, like they're gonna close the case and you can't even convict the man. He's dead.
He's
for
dead.
so many years.
Yeah,
that's wild.
He
Cool.
would be. I think he would be dead anyway. You know.
Yeah. Well,
It's wild.
He's a crazy
I just love
man.
that. That's so cool.
I have no words because I'm like, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, we're just always going to live with like never knowing who that person is.
And there's so many like characters in like Hollywood and like, you know, just things that they base off of Jack the Ripper because he was a literal psychopath.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
love it.
Cool.
Love murder.
Yeah. There's probably going to be new documentaries and stuff released. I'm sure.
Totally. 1000%.
Based on this guy's life.
Yeah.
I'm so in.
Because it's like the Green River Killer or whatever. He got away with it for so long. And then they finally figured out and they went through his whole life and they're like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah. Was that the guy who he was still alive and he like confessed to it in court? He was like super old, like during COVID.
I don't know if it was during COVID, but yeah, he definitely
I think that was the Green River Killer.
He did get caught. Yeah, like
he was still
he
still
got
alive.
away with it for so long. Yes, and he was alive when they found him. They
Yeah,
were like, okay, it was this guy.
I saw a video of him in court. It was during COVID because I remember he was wearing a freaking clear face shield.
Oh.
He looked so silly. He was like this little old man though, just like an old man. Looked like he was about to fall over at any minute.
Yeah,
and he was like had this like creepy like he like barely talk, and he was basically like, yeah, I did it, boy.
Yeah, and what? I'm dead anyway.
Ew, and what? Yeah.
He was like, I'm skin and bones. What you want?
Send me to jail. 3 square meals a day, baby.
Yeah, I don't have to pay these bills no more. He's probably over it. That's where he's at in his time of life.
That's wild.
Another thing that we came across after the last episode. So I was just looking for pictures. So because Shae and I recorded the episode on the same day. We recorded Lee Sober Shapiro and the H.H. Holmes Part 1 on the same day. And I don't know, I went home and I edited hers first because it needed to go out on Tuesday, and then mine I just put out on Thursday. But as I was editing, I was going to get pictures to put on our Instagram, and her headstone popped up, and it was like born May
17th.
It's 16th or 18th.
Oh.
I think it's 16th. May 16th. And I was like, what the hell? And I went and looked, and it's like Herman Webster Mudgett, May 16th. But I say 18 or 16 because he was born 1861. So I just get
you
it
can't
confused.
remember.
But they were both born on the same day.
Have the same birthday.
I was like, how did we do that? How did we manage that one? But that's just one of those things where I'm like, are coincidences real? Yeah. Like, really?
She was like, get on your phone immediately. I don't care if you're at work. I'm like fighting for my life in the emergency room. And she's like, you need to look at what I'm sending you right now, right this very moment. And I was thankfully like going to lunch like 5 minutes later. And I was like, that's crazy.
Because I sent you I sent you a Snapchat video talking because I was like, because I like read it and I knew you were busy. So I ran out to the living room and Aaron was sitting on the couch and I was like, Joseph. And he was like, what? And I told him and he was like, that's crazy. Like a bunch of question marks.
And you don't understand. Goodbye.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well. And I went in my office and like sent you a Snapchat video and you weren't opening it fast enough. So I texted you and I said, F your job. Look at your phone. That's exactly what I said.
It is. I was trying to be nice, but I'm glad you put it out there.
I'm not nice.
Yeah, I was cracking up. It was wild. Was not expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting. Honestly, I had no idea what she was going to say.
I said, shut the up. And you said,
yeah, I was like, what? What's wrong? I was so scared.
I know the anxiety that instills in someone. The worst is when someone says that to you and then they don't respond to you for 2 hours and you're like, I will drive to wherever you are.
I'm going to explode.
I will find you and you're going to tell me what's going on because I'm not waiting 2 hours. I will literally
come to you. I will find you and I will kill you.
Yes, that is exactly how I felt. I can't do that. When someone's like, okay, or like, or even just when like,
oh, I need to tell you something.
Landon will text me. He's like, okay. And I'm like, say more.
All right. Well, let's dive into part 2 of this.
Yeah, because I want to get this all in 2 parts because I really don't want to do a 3rd part. And this one I do have to read more off of this. Last one I thought I'd have to read more than I did end up having to read more. But this one is where it starts to get crazy and like he's here and then he's here and then he's here and then he's here. And if I...
So strap in and pay attention.
Yeah, I'm like, if I don't read it...
There will be a quiz at the end.
Yes. I hope you brought your Scantron.
Not the Scantron.
It's all C. The
Number
answers
2
are all
pencil.
C. Okay, so to recap like a little bit of last week's episode in case you've all forgotten because it's a wild ride. So we talked about Herman Webster Mudgett's childhood and how his father and other children were kind of mean to him, isolated him. He's a little crazy guy. Herman married Clara and had a son named Robert, never divorced her. Herman attended to medical college where he started all of his scheming and doing his weird shit. That's exactly how I have it written.
Long story short.
Yeah. Herman was left by his wife and son right before he graduated. He then moved to New York and mandated vaccines and made people pay for them and then left because he owed everybody money. Herman moved to Chicago with his new wife, Myrta, and took over Holton's drugs. That is where he became Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, other known as H.H. Holmes. So now, Holmes began and completed construction on his murder castle where he swindled every person included. Holmes courted and promised Julia marriage before he killed her and her daughter. And that's about where we left off. So that leaves his current body count of victims anywhere between 1 and 7 people, including Julia, her daughter, his investor, if you'll remember, who convulsed and all of that, and then his colleague, Dr. Leacock, and then his 2 cousins and childhood friend. Granted that
Possibly.
he did his 2 cousins and the childhood friend. That's why I say between 1 and 7.
Mm-hmm. We're not really sure.
No, and there could honestly be so many other people thrown in that mix that just were an under the radar type thing. So now it is January of 1892 and a new family is moving into Julia's old apartment.
Okay.
Because remember, she lived in his apartment complex. Her husband left.
Mhm.
She kept the daughter. She got pregnant, said, you have to marry me. And he was like, you know what? I'll do just that. But you're going to get an abortion. Gives her an
I'm gonna do
abortion.
it.
She dies. He kills her daughter. So now her things are just still in her apartment. And he explained to the new tenants, he was like, yeah, she had a sister who was ill. So she left. She won't be coming back. She doesn't need these things. And they were like,
All right.
okay. But he was also giving other people like a different story. And he also had said at one point in time that she came back to give him money that she owed him for rent. So there's like 3 or 4 different stories going on about where she actually went. And everyone's just like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I'll believe all 5. It's
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
He's just confused.
Again, pull out a notepad, write it all down.
Yeah.
Read through it and say, this is what I have told you.
This is what I told people.
Yes.
God.
So now it's the spring of 1892, and Benjamin Peitzel, which was his little accomplice basically, traveled to Dwight, Illinois to get treated for alcoholism. While he's there, he meets a girl named Emmeline. Don't really know how to say it. I'm going to go with Emmeline because it's easier to say. But she worked there as a stenographer, so she works there and she does the typing,
Mhm.
you know? And he thought she was just breathtaking. He knew that Holmes would take an attraction to her. And so when he got back home to Chicago, he told Holmes, he was like, hey, I met this hot ass babe. No, he called her like a dewy princess or something. He called her something really weird.
Okay.
He was like, I met her. You would really like her. So Holmes sends her a letter and he's like, I'll pay you double what you're making there. Move here and come be my stenographer.
Dewy princess.
Yeah, come be my dewy princess. And for whatever reason, she does do that. She's like, oh, of course, yeah. Moves to Chicago. She does live in a boarding house for a little while. And the landlady there claimed that Holmes spoiled her with gifts and showered her with love, which Emmeline reacted very fondly to.
Well, yeah.
Her landlady said that Emmeline never stopped talking about Holmes. But her landlady had also told her, like, this is unseemly of you. You are walking around with a married man. Bad idea. And Emmeline was like, And so whether it was at her discretion or Holmes, she leaves that boarding house. One of the other podcasts that I've listened to, they said that like after she left that boarding house, that she moved from boarding house to boarding house. Like every week she went to a new boarding house.
Okay, girl.
And I think it was probably at Holmes' discretion to try and keep her kind of secretive,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
how he was.
Yeah.
For whatever
So
reason,
that people
I thought,
wouldn't catch on.
yeah, for whatever reason, I thought she moved in with him, but I'm not seeing that here. So either way.
Either way, it's sketchy.
Yes, either way. And everyone still saw them together anyways, because he would have her come to the like castle or whatever. And, you know, he had the whole first floor
Mhm.
of like a barber shop and a jewelry shop and a pharmacy. And like all of his people that worked for him were like, man, this is kind of embarrassing for her because he totally has a wife that lives down the road with a baby.
Yeah.
And he just had Julia flaunting around with him.
Mhm. Now she did.
Now she's missing. She's gone. So it's kind of embarrassing for this girl.
Brain cells, man.
So Holmes and Emmeline maintained this sort of relationship from spring of 1892 to the winter of 1892. People who had interacted with Emmeline said that her feelings towards home were starting to kind of shift.
Mhm.
And she was supposed to be heading home for Christmas to see her family. And she actually ended up leaving a few days early to go see her family. And no one really questioned it. They were like, I mean, I guess, whatever. Her feelings are starting to shift. So maybe she just wanted to get home quicker. Like, okay.
Yeah.
But one of her friends did express a greater concern. And this other friend did work for Holmes as well, like in one of his
Mhm.
things. And she had asked Holmes, like, hey, where'd she go? She wasn't supposed to leave this early. And he said, oh, she'd gone and gotten married. And she was like, wait, what? I thought y'all were
Yeah. Together.
together. And she would have told me, like, I thought she was just going home for Christmas. Wait, what do you mean she got married? You know? And she was like, okay, whatever. And so then the next day, the young woman who had been asking Holmes saw him and 2 of his assistants carrying out a heavy trunk from the building. Then the day after that, he went to his wife's house and stayed there for a few days. So then when he returned days later, he made a point of showing this young woman an invitation to a wedding from Emmeline, saying she was marrying Robert Phelps on December 7th of 1892.
Okay.
And she was like, you made a point to come show me these, but you know what? Whatever. I don't know why she didn't go further from there. That's last time. Why are you not going to the police? This is weird.
Yeah, something's not correct.
Yeah.
This man's just lying to lie.
Yeah, but don't know what she did with that. But then a few days later, Emmeline's trunk arrived at her parents' house because back then everyone kept their stuff in their trunks and that's all, like all their dresses.
Yeah.
Whatever. So her trunk arrived at her parents' house and her parents were like, oh, I guess it's because Robert Phelps is wealthy and she doesn't need her things. And they didn't really think anything of it.
Oh, her parents thought she was getting married too?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what they assumed. They assumed like, oh, and I think they had received something about a Robert Phelps as well. I don't have that written here, but I feel like I've heard it elsewhere. Okay. But they did. They got her trunk. And like back in the day, if you married someone wealthy, you didn't necessarily have to take your things. Mm-hmm. And so that's just where their brain were like, they were like, oh, she married a fancy, wealthy man and doesn't need these things anymore. Like she's going to get new gowns and everything like that.
Yeah.
But that does turn out to be the last bit of information they ever heard from her again, which wasn't even actually from her, because she's not alive. But during Holmes' confessions, he said that he had actually planned to kill her fiance rather than her. But after several failed attempts, he killed her instead. And I'm like, okay, so he's just fabricating this whole fiance marriage thing and he's stuck on it. And I'm like, is he just trying to like make everything have a viable excuse?
Yeah.
Or is he just lied so much that he believes it?
That's crazy.
But that was his
and so he just killed her?
Yeah.
He confessed that he had
He said, but after several failed attempts, he killed her instead.
Okay.
Yeah. So remember his airtight vaults?
Yeah.
Yeah. He lures Emmeline into one of those vaults, the one in his office most likely. And she was brought like a slow death because it was airtight vaults. So like there's no oxygen, there's nothing in there. On January 2nd in 1893, Holmes sent Charles Chappell, the skeleton articulator guy, a trunk with a woman inside and asked Charles to strip her flesh of her bones and get her bones articulated.
So so
that's the second body he sent that guy.
That's another one that he sent.
Yes, that's the second body he sent him.
Okay, yeah, because the first one was probably Julia.
Yes.
Okay.
And a few weeks later, this one he sent to the LaSalle Medical College of Chicago because he sent the other skeleton to a different place because they'll buy skeletons from you. Mm-hmm. So he sent this one off to get purchased at a different medical college. So when police went through the castle after his arrest, they found in the large vault a footprint embedded into the wall where a woman had tried to kick her way out of the vault. So they are assuming that was most likely Emmeline's footprint.
Oh my.
And I had heard that he had used, I just don't know how viable it is because I don't really know how that would work. But I had heard that he had put acid on the floor of the vault. And that's why her footprint was able to like stay. But I don't really know how acid would work in a place like that. Like I just don't know how. And why she wouldn't be like sizzling alive. I don't know. It didn't make much sense to me. So that's another portion of that as to why her footprint could have been
stuck in the wall. That's crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah, like they couldn't wipe it off the wall either. Like they were like, maybe it's just like a dusty footprint.
Oh no, it was an imprint.
It was like imprinted. Yeah.
Ooh.
So now we're going to move on to his next love conquest because he just seems to not be able to keep his wiener in his pants. And that's the weird thing is like he keeps getting these new women and it's not like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. Like they got off on the fear, like they found new women, new men, whatever. But they got off on like the fear and the screams. Like that's what motivated them to like kill these guys. He just like kills them when he's done with them. He's like, no, I really love them and I dote them and all of this. Yeah. And I use them for their money because every single one of them has some sort of money. Mm-hmm. Either way, they all had something to offer and he just like takes everything he can from them and then kills them. So it's like, I don't necessarily know if he likes to kill. It's really weird because he seems to really be money motivated, but it's also like he's killing too. It's just like a weird, I don't know what he wants. I don't know what he wants outside of money.
What's your plan, sir?
Like, I know you want money, but do you have to kill him to have the money? Like, is that, but then he also really likes dissection. It's just a weird thing. I don't know. My brain can't wrap around it. Anyhow, he meets Minnie Williams. Minnie Williams had been fostered by her uncle as a child, and he sent her to a finishing school in Boston. So while she was in that finishing school, her uncle passed away and left her an estate that was valued at $50,000 to $100,000, which today is about $1.5 to $3 million.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he really took care of her. And she has a sister and a brother. And I'm like, so I don't know where they were raised.
Yeah.
And if they were left the same kind of stuff, but she was left that much.
A big chunk.
So along with the estate that she was left, she also inherited a property in Fort Worth, Texas.
What?
Yeah, it's weird.
Fort Worth?
Fort Worth. I'll later get closer to like exactly where they think the location is in Fort Worth. During her time in finishing school, she met Holmes at a party where a bunch of high-class citizens were in attendance. So she was always known to be like at the nicer parties and things like that. But She was not known to be his usual type of like, he had a certain type of like elegance and beauty, and she didn't really fit the normal standard. Either way, he showed her a bunch of attention, lavished her with gifts. So he would return to Boston back and forth and like extend his stay to spend more time with her. But he eventually kind of grew bored and was like, and then he just kind of started sticking to Chicago more. But then she graduated from Boston and moved to Colorado and used her inheritance to try and start a theater because she was really into the theater and like, you know, like I said, lavish parties. Yeah. That was her thing. It didn't really work out. She lost all this money and she was like, you know what? I'm going to go meet this man that I remember meeting in Boston that I really liked. I'm going to go to Chicago and see if I can run into him. I really liked him. I think he would be happy with that because he would come to me.
Yeah.
Keep in mind also, I forgot to mention this. This whole time he tells her his name is Henry Gordon. Henry Gordon. Okay, Harry Gordon.
Another alias.
Yes. Harry Gordon, not Henry Gordon. And so she's like, I can't get Harry Gordon out of my mind. I'm going to go find Harry Gordon. So at this time, the World Fair is going on. It's a place with a ton of great opportunities. So she's like, oh, I can just move and go try and figure something out during the World Fair. So she's using that kind of as her excuse, but she's also trying to get to
this guy,
Holmes. Minnie does settle in Chicago on the north side and took a job as a stenographer. Surprise, surprise. I don't know what the deal is with that, but she was able to get in contact with Holmes and he was thrilled that she came to him. So then he insisted she come work for him as his personal secretary, even though she had a job, which is literally what he does to every other girl.
I'll pay you double.
His stipulation was that she had to only call him by Holmes, though, not Mr. Gordon. And I don't know why she didn't question it.
Right. She didn't think that was weird.
No. A few weeks after moving there, she did leave her boarding house and did end up moving into one of the apartments at Holmes Castle. She quickly started finding him in like compromising positions with other people, like sexual type things with like other women. And instead of being like, I'm going to leave, and instead of him being like, I'm going to not do that to you anymore, he puts in an alarm so that whenever she would come from the third story to like the second story where he would do these things at, it would buzz and he would know that she was coming because like only him and her were allowed in the third story at this point in time. So now he would be alerted and he would stop his fondling, I guess. But it's like, just fucking quit. Like, what are you doing?
Oh my God.
Yes. So then in 1893, he proposed to Minnie and they began wedding planning.
Oh my God.
Yes. So he did in fact like marry her, but not legally, clearly. But no one really knows if she knew that it wasn't a legal marriage or if she just like, he had some elaborate way, you know, of making it
seem real
to her.
Bless her heart. Minnie, come on, girl.
Yeah. They like had a whole ceremony. There were people there, a whole big thing. So, but that gave him access to Minnie's inheritance, you know, the $300,000 million land and everything like that. So then he had Minnie write to her, the guy who's in charge of all of her stuff, like basically her, like not necessarily her lawyer, I guess, but whoever's in charge of like her estate and her finances and all of that. Holmes had her write to him and say, hey, I need you to sell off part of my land and give me the money for it. And it was $3,000 that was sent to her, which is equivalent to like $80,000 today. And then after that, he asked Minnie to sign over the entire property to a man named Alexander Bond.
Okay.
Which she did in the May of 1893.
Does she know who this man is?
No.
Why are we doing that? Oh, these women?
Yeah.
You know what? Deserved it.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, how back in the day, though,
you were
like,
asking for it.
Yeah, but a lot of women back then, I think you just listen to your husband.
Girl.
I'd be asking questions.
I have questions.
I'm a questionable girl.
If your husband came up to you and said, hey, sign over your property to this guy.
I'll tell him to eat shit.
First question, who is that?
Yeah.
Second thing, no.
This is mine.
What?
I'm like, no, this is mine.
I can't wrap my brain around that.
Yeah.
But they're just like, okay.
Yeah. Aaron's like, let me drive your car today. And I'm like, don't touch my car.
Why?
Don't touch my car. Why? Like, let me miss your bank accounts, man.
No. Yeah, literally. How about you sign your account over into my name? Then we'll talk.
Then we'll consider. We'll see what happens.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so she signed it over to Alexander Bond in May of 1893. Then Bond sold the property over to a man named Benton Lyman. But Alex Bond was H.H. Holmes. Yeah. And Benton Lyman was Benjamin Pitezel.
Sneaky little conniving little fuckers. What the hell?
Yeah, I don't know how they keep any of this straight, honestly. I'd be like, oh, because it's like Alex Bond and Benton Lyman. I'd be like, I'm Alex Lyman and Bond Benton. Like I'd have the names so backwards.
And he could just say, hey,
how
I'm
about
your
you sign it over to me?
Sign it over to my name.
Yeah, but he's trying to keep his name out of everything. Like There is like nothing. And that's one of the ways he's able to evade cops and debtors. Everything is because nothing actually
his
says
name.
who he is.
Yeah.
Which is smart-ish, but also like, you suck.
God, that
That's what I'm
is
saying.
so
Do you know,
frustrating.
if he had just used his brain for good, do you know how much good he could have done?
Oh, yeah, he could have done a lot of good things. He was very smart.
He has a brain.
Mhm.
That's what's crazy. He has a brain, but he's also stupid as hell for doing all the shit he's doing.
No common sense.
Yeah, just lying like a maniac. Okay, so then, yes, now they both own her property. And at this point in time, Minnie is starting to reconnect with her sister, and her name is like Nanny. It's like Minnie and Nanny.
Cute.
Yes, and so Nanny was a school teacher in Texas and was like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'll come visit you. I want to see the World Fair. So whenever the school year is up, I'll head up there. So in like June, she does go up to Chicago, and they all are hanging out together. Like Nanny writes to their aunt and is like, hey, don't worry about us. Like Holmes is taking really good care of us. Actually, I don't even know if she calls him Holmes.
Yeah, this guy.
No, she says, brother Harry Gordon. Brother Harry is taking really good care of us. Don't worry about us. Like, we're fine. We're about to go on a whole entire trip in Europe, and he's going to take us, and it's just going to be so cool. So, like, if we don't get in contact with you, it's because we're traversing the seas in Europe. Like, we're doing some cool shit.
No.
Who do you think wrote the letter?
You bet to be dead.
Yeah. But then later, instead of him being like, yeah, it was me who wrote the letter, he's like, nah, Minnie wrote that letter from her sister. Minnie did it. I didn't do that. Because the whole story on this whole situation is that Minnie, Nanny, Holmes, they're all there. And apparently, the real life, Minnie takes a day trip somewhere. She goes somewhere else. And when she comes home, Holmes is like, oh, your sister left. She don't want to be here anymore. Whatever. So he's already killed the sister. There's claims that people saw them that day together at the World Fair. So like people did know they were spending time together that day. And then, but his story, whenever he confesses, is that Minnie had come home and Holmes and Nanny, like, they weren't doing anything compromising, but Minnie felt insecure about their relationship and killed her sister. And so Holmes helped her put her body in a trunk and drown it in the river with like stones and shit. The truth of it all is no one really knows for sure, but the truth of it all is he probably just killed both of them.
Yeah, because Minnie's dead too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nobody will ever know.
No, I don't think.
Except for Harry, Henry, Herman, Gordon.
Alex, bald, whatever. Yeah, Bond. Yeah.
Holmes
so,
Mudgett.
Yeah.
That guy knows. Get a hold of him.
Yeah.
It's in the phone book.
Find that one. Yeah, it's in the phone book. That reminds me of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. The bell.
Esteban, Julio, Ricardo, Montoya, Rodriguez.
Mendoza. Yeah, him. All of his names.
Yeah.
That's what that reminded me of.
Esteban, Julio. Oh, yeah, that's good.
That's what you made me think of, though. So then there's other things where people were kind of like, so where's Minnie at? And he's like, she's at a mental health facility getting treatment. Like, there's just all these different...
She's getting a lobotomy. She'll be back later.
When she comes back with strabismus, don't worry about it. So then, this is in like June, July. He's hanging out with them, kills them, whatever. Now it's August of 1893, and there's a fire at the castle. Ooh. Could you just imagine that the castle just lights on fire like that? Not the insurance fraud guy trying to find more insurance fraud. No. So many of the residents think Holmes set the fire because that day he had like taken everything. Like they'd seen him kind of like taking
stuff out.
Yeah. Light fixtures are not in there anymore. Door handles are not on the doors. Like nothing important is there anymore. And they said that the whole entire third floor smelt like burning tar. I'm like, you're an idiot.
All right, bro.
You're an idiot. How about instead of taking everything out the day before,
you do it like over time? Yeah.
Yeah. Stupid.
If you know you're going to do it that day.
Yeah.
Again, there's no common sense there.
No.
He'd just be doing shit to do it. Whatever he
wants.
wants.
He just thinks he can do it. Like
Yeah.
he does get away with it. That's the thing is it works.
Yeah.
So months after the fire, they hired a handyman because they didn't burn like the whole building, like people were able to get out, whatever. But months after the fire, they hired a handyman and he told the fire inspector that it was definitely set for insurance money and that some things in the building Holmes never wanted people to know. So I don't know what he saw, but he saw enough to be like, that man had secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A few days after the fire, a crew came in to help clean the aftermath of the fire. And while they were just like throwing the debris off the roof onto a tenant home below. So it was just like a normal space, I guess. And for me, I'm like, oh, okay, it's like an abandoned house. There's a family that lives in there. And the man of the house is like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're showering us in debris.
Hello.
Yeah, like, hello. Yes. And he's like, clearly agitated. He goes and complains. And then Holmes told somebody, I'm going to fix that man. And Holmes apparently like walked the alleyway, like between the hotel or apartment, hotel,
house.
murder castle, and this man's house, just like waiting for this guy to come out. And eventually one day he does. And Holmes has lost his shit on this man, and he had pulled a gun on him and was like fucking doing this shit right here. And for whatever reason, for whatever reason, there was a patrolman passing by and was like, whoa, and like de-escalated the situation. And that was really all that had ever happened to that, like heard of that.
Yeah. The cop was like, hey man, put that away. You're a good guy. Gotta go.
Yeah. But I don't think there's like nothing that ever said like the other guy died or anything like that. But there was like,
but he was gonna kill him.
He was about
100%.
to Yeah. So it's just another thing if he's like, I'm gonna kill him, and he just told somebody I'm gonna fix that man, which definitely means you're about to kill this guy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So now at this point, Holmes is bouncing between hotels and living arrangements. He's trying to avoid debt collectors, insurance collectors, and just all this other shit. Are you ready?
No.
Holmes has a different girl now.
What is this? Number 5?
I don't know.
4
probably.
or 5. I think we're on 4 or 5. I've been trying to keep count.
Clara, Myrta, Emmeline,
Julia.
Those are out of order. Julia, Emmeline, Minnie. This is number 6.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Okay.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit. What's her name?
I'll get there.
Girl.
So he's taken another wife, and many people thought that Minnie would still be returning for treatment. And so they're like, what the hell are you doing, dude? This doesn't make any sense.
Minnie's coming back. He's like, no, she's not.
They're like, this doesn't make sense. So they finally track Holmes down to this small hotel. And the only person that they were able to find was this woman. And she introduced herself as Mrs. Holmes. And people called her Minnie. People thought that was Minnie. Don't know why. I couldn't tell you that they look the same because they don't.
And homegirl wasn't like,
nope. Okay. Yeah,
sure.
like responds to it.
No, that's not me. No.
And so there's this insurance investigator, and he's trying to come after Holmes for arson. And in January of 1894, the investigator set up a trap. He said, you know what? Just come here. The insurance is going to pay this out. Come get your check. So when Holmes got there to get the check, the man called Holmes out for being an arsonist. And Holmes was like, you know what? Yeah, I did it. That's fine. But the legal stipulation is that if they hadn't been able to prove that the fire was like set on purpose within a year, then the charges get dropped. And Holmes knew that. So Holmes was like, yeah, that's fine. But then he could never be prosecuted because he evaded everything for that year. Like he just evaded anybody he could.
Yeah.
And so it just never went through. But like they still knew it was him, and he said, yeah, I did do it.
But good
he
luck
just was
proving
like,
it.
but I just have to stay away from you for a year. And then there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So at this point, he's like, I'm just going to keep moving around, evading.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then after this event, because the fire investigator people go and they look through all of his insurance claims, anything that like he's been attached to, and there's clearly a ton.
A lot.
And a lot of debt collectors and things like that. And so over 20 of the people that he owed gathered together and confronted Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
He agreed to give them all parcels of his land as collateral for his debts. He even offered the property that was under the name Kate Durkee and Minnie Williams. And he was like, I'll just give you all that as collateral. He intentionally made a clerical error on these deed transfers so that it would make it to where they had to come find him again and have another meeting to fix it. So he left in that whole time.
Oh my God.
So after leaving Chicago, he went to Denver to claim the insurance payout for Baldwin, which was Nanny and Minnie's brother, because he is married to Minnie, so he can collect.
Yeah.
But everyone's like, okay, so did he kill this guy too? And how? How did he plan to get Baldwin killed?
Yeah.
Like, how is he just doing this? But he leaves and goes and gets the money for that. So while in Denver, he met up with a woman he had already been in contact with for over a year, and her name was Georgiana Yoke. So this is where it's confusing. Was Georgiana Yoke the woman that was Minnie and called Minnie and was living at his apartment? Like, who the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And then did she go back to Denver, and then that's where he meets her for the first time, is whenever or like, was she already there? It's a really big thing.
Name, yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge, weird, no one fucking knows what's going on.
Oh my God. This is so confusing.
I told you I have to read off of it because there's just way too much.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it said that he had been courting her for the last year and married her on January 17th as a man named Henry M. Howard of Fort Worth, Texas. So at this point, he's married to Clara, Myrta, Minnie, and Georgiana.
And he lives in Fort Worth.
Which he did do.
Does he ever actually reside in Fort Worth?
He does come to Fort Worth.
Oh my God. So Fort Worth is literally like 30 minutes from here.
Yes. You work in Fort Worth. You work right by where he does all this shit at.
What?
Yeah. It's down there. It's by like the courthouse and stuff.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. Downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah. So Georgiana was born October 17th, 1869. She had almost white blonde hair and big blue eyes. Like some people said, she almost had too big of eyes. When she met Holmes, she was a school teacher and in her 20s. She very abruptly moved to Chicago to live with an uncle. So maybe that's where she met him. And maybe she was being Minnie. It's just weird.
That kind of connects, yeah.
But in the next year, when she turned 25, she would get a 168-acre farm in Indiana from her grandmother. So just another woman that has something going on.
Another woman with a lot of land.
So they left Indiana together. Well, they go to Denver. Then they go to Indiana to see her grandmother or some random shit. I don't know. She has family there still. So they go to Indiana a lot.
Back and forth,
and all of this. And so this is where they were planning on heading to Texas because they were going to go, he was going to go cash in on the land that Minnie had written over to Alex and Benton. So Georgiana and her mother both were told that the land was actually left to him by his uncle, Henry Mansfield Howard, and that he had to be called Henry Mansfield Howard in order to take over the land. So they needed to call him Henry Mansfield Howard.
That's not how that works.
No. He acted like he was like his uncle was like a duke or something. So in order to take over the title, he also had to take the name of the duke. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So whether Georgiana knows all of this scheming or not, I think she probably does know all of this scheming.
Yeah.
But I think her aunt or grandma or any of her family members, I think, believe his story. And I think she aids and abets or whatever. Yeah. I think she just goes along with it.
Yeah.
Because she's the only bitch that doesn't die.
Oh, okay.
So I think she's got to be just as sleazy.
Yeah.
Or maybe not sleazy. She's got to be just as bad, probably. Unless he's really good at tricking her. But that sounds a little crazy to me. A little far-fetched. So on their way to Texas, Holmes wanted to make a brief stop in Chicago. While there, he tied up some loose ends and then took his new life insurance policy out on Benjamin Peitzel, his
partner,
like best friend. Then he continued on to Fort Worth. Holmes' plan was to sell off some of the land to generate revenue to build another 3-story building. So he was going to sell off some of the land there because he had so many acreages. Yeah. And he was going to build another murder castle in Fort Worth. So the plan was for Benjamin and his family to move with them to Fort Worth. And while Holmes was still in Indiana before he went to Chicago and did all this stuff, Benjamin was already down in Fort Worth, like taking the deed and switching it over from Benton and Lyman and Alex and Bond and all that shit to just like Holmes and Benjamin themselves. So from there, Peitzel, so he's not going to build on the property that he was left to him. He's going to buy a new piece of property from what I understand. And it is where 2nd and Rusk Street are. So that is now Commerce Street.
Oh, okay.
And 2nd Street still. So it's literally right by the courthouse in downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they actually did start the construction, and it was going to be under the name of a superintendent called H.M. Pratt. H.H. Holmes, correct? Yeah. So they started the construction, but he started doing the same shit he did in Chicago where he's like, oh,
not
you
paying
suck.
people.
I'm not going to pay you. And you're in Texas, so that does not work. And so he's like, okay, I need to go scrounge up some money and actually be able to pay for some of this stuff, right? So he's going around the state of Texas, and he's buying people's horses with promissory notes and fake deeds and just stupid shit. And before that, like before the people could realize like whatever he had given them wasn't like a legitimate piece of paper or source or whatever, he would sell the horse for cash to somebody else. He did get arrested for this because you're in Texas.
Yeah, you ain't doing that. You don't you don't touch our horses.
You don't do anything in Texas without getting caught.
Yeah, or shot.
Yeah, one or the other. And so they caught him and Benjamin and they had to go to jail. And this is kind of like what really set them on the radar is like, oh, now they're in Texas and their names are actually out there because you actually have to give your name when you're in jail.
Yeah.
So.
Ooh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So after this, because like I said, now people are able to be like, oh, Holmes is here and we can go after him because he's still got like the fire people. They can't really get him for that insurance fraud. They can't really get him for the fire, but they can still try and get him for insurance fraud. It's a different charge and a different time span or whatever. So there are people coming after him now. Like a lot more people are looking at him. And so now that his name's out there, he's like, all right, we're going to abandon this whole Texas idea and we're going to go somewhere else. And so
get the hell out of here.
Yeah, this isn't going to work for us. So him and Georgiana fled to St. Louis. St. Louis. I don't know why I said St. Louis. I know better.
St. Louis.
St. Louis. St. Louis. Yeah. So while in St. Louis, he called himself
You said it again.
Huh?
You said it again.
What?
St. Louis.
Motherfucker.
So they're in St. Louis.
So while in St. Louis, he calls himself H.M. Howard, and bought a drugstore.
Here we go again.
Yeah. But he did buy the majority of it with cash and then bought the rest with worthless promissory notes and deeds again. Pulled the same shit. Bought things on credit again with no intention of paying for it. And after moving here, Benjamin Peitzel and his 5 children and wife moved there too. So this is where Benjamin and Holmes let his wife in on a plan that they're going to commit insurance fraud together. Benjamin is going to die, and then Holmes and the wife will cash out the insurance money and do with that what they will, you know. They find a buyer for the pharmacy, and the way the buyer was going to get the money to purchase the pharmacy was that he had to make a promise with a supplier to only use the supplier. And the problem with that is that Holmes had already had a mortgage out on the store, which meant that any other mortgage on the property would be illegal and invalid. So the buyer alerted the authorities that Holmes was trying to scam him because he was like, this man's trying to get this, pull one over on me.
Yeah.
So then Holmes is arrested on fraud charges.
My God, we have a smart one.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Somebody.
It seems like as soon as he leaves Chicago, shit just adds up. So he was in jail for 2 weeks, and then he was bonded out by Georgiana because I guess she had to go find money or figure out how to get his money because it's probably not under whatever name she knows him as.
Yeah.
So they went to the train station after being bonded out, and they were going to go to Chicago and just regroup and just like sit down and think about what was next. But he gets arrested at the train station again, like literally gets out, goes to the train station, gets arrested again. So they set bail for him at $800, which is now like $50,000. And Georgiana had to go to Indiana and like get the deed for her land because should be 25 at this point and get collateral for his release. So, whatever. But while he's in prison, you think Holmes is going to be a quiet guy? No. He's in there networking, which we come back to that. He is in there just talking up a fucking mess. So then on July 29th, Benjamin Peitzel left St. Louis and told his wife he was taking a brief trip to buy lumber from Chicago. But he was actually going to meet Holmes in Philadelphia, which is where Holmes and Georgiana went after she was able to bail him out again.
The second time.
So on their way to Philadelphia, they stopped in Indiana and visited her mother, Georgiana's mother. And Holmes told her they were going to be traveling to Germany to look after his uncle's property and to not be alarmed when she couldn't get hold of Georgiana. Georgiana did end up actually staying behind at that point in time and was like, I'm just going to stay here and hang out with family for a little bit. You go on and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that probably saved her life.
Yes.
So now Benjamin Peitzel is in Philadelphia on August 17th, 1894. Sorry, this is a lot of jumping around and it only gets worse. So my bad. But within a few days, he opened a patenting business under the alias of B.F. Perry. Yeah. So it was going to be that he was supposed to establish himself and then they were going to do this whole
insurance thing.
Death. Yes.
Okay.
So they were going to place a corpse in the building and then like set it on fire and get the insurance payout.
The usual.
Do whatever it needed to be done to hide that it wasn't actually Benjamin.
Yeah. Like it's nothing. They just.
Yeah. Just fuck it.
Yeah.
The usual. Run of the mill.
Yeah.
So Holmes goes to B.F. Perry's, the patenting business. And he said the only problem that presented itself is that he didn't want to look like the body had been moved. Because he wanted it to look like an accidental suicide or an accident or suicide.
Yeah.
Because now he's like, okay, I was going to actually get a different body and let you be on the plan. But if you're trying to leave, I'm just going to kill you instead because I need the money. So he's going to kill his like best friend, basically.
Oh, my God.
So Holmes ties Ben's hands and feet together because he's passed out drunk. He is like alive still.
So he finds him and he is drunk.
He finds him and he is drunk like he knew because this man clearly is an alcoholic. He went to rehab and it didn't work. And it's just he's known for being a drunk. So he ties Ben's hands and feet together and soaked the body in benzidine or something like that and burned him alive. So then once the body was burned enough, he untied his hands and feet and poured chloroform into his stomach so that the coroner could see this as some sort of death or accident like the explosion.
He drank or
something,
okay.
Something crazy. But Holmes had so what he had done is he had put his pipe, Benjamin had a pipe, he had put the pipe next to Benjamin and next to a bottle of some sort of something
that would explode
to where it looks like it exploded. And then to make it look like more of an accident, he kind of rumbled the room up to where it looked like there was some sort of explosion that happened and that it wasn't just some nice, neat setting.
Yeah.
So then Holmes rushes to Georgiana. He had already had her packed up, but I don't know if she knew that he was killing him or not. And he was like,
gotta go.
Close the deal with this railway man. We got to go immediately. So they boarded the train to Indianapolis the same night. Indianapolis? I don't know. Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later is when Peitzel's body was discovered on September 4th. And given the way that he was found, they did say it was an accident. But the coroner was like, I just can't really nail this down. This doesn't really make sense, the way that the body's presented with the way things are laid out around the room.
Mm-hmm.
And the number one thing that set him off was that the chloroform, if it was ingested before he had died, the stomach lining would have been messed up. But since it was like after he was dead, he was like, that's sus.
Yeah.
Okay, so with all this chaos, right? Are you confused yet?
I'm so well, not really. I mean, I am confused, but I'm following.
There's a lot of little steps that probably get taken out, but here we are. Well, all of this is going on with BF Perry because no one knows.
Who's now dead.
Well, no one knows who he is. They actually all thought he was BF Perry. Like everyone around him up there knows him as BF Perry.
Not Brendan Peitzel.
Yeah, Benjamin.
Sorry.
Yeah. Holmes is the only one who knows who that is. And so Holmes is like, I got to go tell his family about his death, but I got to tell them, it's fake. It's not actually his body, so we can still get the insurance money. And yeah. So,
because the wife knew about it.
She knew about the scheme. Yes.
Yeah.
So upon arrival, he finds Peitzel's wife, and she's just inconsolable. And he's like, "No, man, like this is just part of the scheme.
Mm-hmm.
He is actually alive. He's here." This is where it gets very confusing. So he's like, "No, man, that's just the scheme. They needed to get the money though." And he told Carrie though, he was like, "The only way," which is his wife. He said, "The only way we're gonna be able to get his body and like get the insurance and stuff is like if a family member or someone goes." And he's like, "I can't go. I can't be seen by them. I'm not a family member. So I need one of y'all." Peitzel's wife is like, "I have to stay here. I have a sick son. I can't leave." But she has a 15-year-old daughter named Alice. And she's like, "I'll just send Alice." And he's like, "That works. We can go stay with my cousin Minnie."
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir. Oh my God.
At this point in time, someone had figured out that Benjamin was BF Perry. And they had sent to Fidelity, the insurance company they were going through. That's still a thing, yeah.
Still a thing.
They sent it to Fidelity, and they were like, "Hey, this Benjamin, I think it's Benjamin Peitzel. I don't think it's this BF Perry." And Fidelity looked into it and was like, "Oh, well, the only person on, his insurance payout is H.H. Holmes." So they try and find him, and they send a letter to Myrta, his wife that's in Chicago. And Holmes somehow got this message from Fidelity and let them know. He was like, "Oh, I've heard about it. We'll be there immediately to get the body. Don't worry about it. I'll bring a family member and we'll be there." So then Carrie does send her daughter, Alice.
Mm-hmm.
And so Holmes and Alice meet in Philadelphia. And Alice wrote her mother a letter that said, "I do not like it when Howard calls me names such as babe, child, and dear." So Alice does not like him.
Alice is like, this guy's a freak.
Yeah, she does not like him. So Alice does go with him to go identify her own father. Mm-hmm. Who the mom thinks is
a fake body.
But they're like, "Hey, we need proof. We need a scar, a mole, a tattoo, a dental, something." And they're like, "Yeah, he has a scar on his leg. He has this on his back, and his teeth have this weird set. So you should be able to tell it's him by these 3 things." And they're like, "Okay, well, y'all just come in the room with us and check it out, right?" And during this, the coroner is like, can't find the scar on his leg, and can't identify this and can't identify that. And it was said that Holmes got so irritated that during that, he scraped burnt flesh off the leg to be like, "There's the fucking scar. It's right there," with the daughter in the room. But then ultimately what called the autopsy was the daughter was like, "Yeah, that's my daddy's teeth." Mm-hmm. And then she left the room really upset. And so that is what kind of confuses me in this whole thing is I'm like, okay, if she really did identify her dad and was like, "That really is my dad's teeth."
Yeah.
Why do they still think he's alive somewhere?
Yeah. Why are we not questioning?
Yeah. Or the scar, that specific. I'm like,
yeah.
"Honey, where's your brain at?" Because I would have been like, "Yeah, that is actually my dad."
You're like, "Hey, you said that wasn't him."
Yeah.
"I thought you said he's alive." Red flag, red flag.
Okay, so you're not normally supposed to get paid out that day whenever insurance hits, but Holmes had a shady lawyer friend there, and he met the shady lawyer friend from his friends that he talked to in jail. And so the shady lawyer friend is like, "Hey man, this wife really needs the money right now. You
better pay
she's
out.
got a son that's dying. That was her husband. So please just go ahead and pay her." So they wrote a check for $9,715.85. It was supposed to be $10,000, but somewhere in that they take money out for the autopsy or something like that. So he did have a check with them for $9,715.85. And he returned to St. Louis, and he gave $2,000 and some change to the lawyer for helping him. He gave $500 to Benjamin's wife.
Here you go, girl.
And he kept $6,000 for himself. He told Carrie, "Your husband owes me money, so I'm keeping this." So then Carrie starts panicking. She's like, "Okay, how do I raise 5 kids on $500? he was, he's in hiding now, and he was who was supposed to be like paying all of our bills. Like, what do you mean? That was the whole reason we did this. And Holmes was like, I'll take your kids. He said, I'll take your 12-year-old daughter, Nellie, and your 8-year-old son, Howard, and they can come live with their sister, Alice. She's still in Indiana with my cousin, Minnie. So
he's like, what? He's like, I'll just take them off your hands.
Yeah.
Does she agree to that? She's like, yeah, sure. Take my kids.
On September 27th, she transfers her rights of her 2 children to Holmes.
I'm about to start yelling. This is so infuriating.
Isn't this just too much?
What the actual hell?
Yeah. You just thought he had a murder castle in Chicago. That's all you thought. You were wrong.
God, there's so much more to this.
I know it's honestly like people listening are probably like, no, I'm done because it's so confusing.
I just don't. The people who just believe everything he says and
whatever you say.
Good guy.
He's my best friend.
Okay, so he has the children.
Yep, he has custody and rights to them and everything like that. So on September 28th, which is the day after she signs over her rights to her children, Alice met Holmes and her siblings at the train station, and they were bound for Cincinnati, Ohio. Once he was there, he registered at a boarding house as Alexander Cook. And then he messaged Georgiana, and he said, okay, because, she's been in Philadelphia or wherever the hell with her family this whole time. He said, all right, you can come here now. Someone purchased my land in Fort Worth, so
we're good. Everything's perfect.
Yeah.
Couldn't be better. By the way, I have 5 kids now.
Yeah. No, he only has 3.
Oh.
She kept 2 of them.
Okay.
Yeah. She kept her sick one and I think the oldest. So he has Alice, who's like 15, and then Nellie, who's like 12, and then Howard, who's 8. But like the youngest one was like 5 and the oldest one's like 16 or something like that. So he only has 3 of them. But he also, when they were leaving, like the reason he's starting to move them, he's like, okay, we can't be in Philadelphia. We got to go to Ohio. We can't be here. We got to go here. Is he has been tipped off that he is being followed by a detective from Fidelity.
I bet he is.
Yeah. So he's like, he's starting to get paranoid and he's starting to get even more skitzed out on where and how and what. So now it's October. Holmes has the 3 kids and he takes them back to Indianapolis where Holmes and Georgiana stay in like a really swanky hotel. And he puts the kids down the road in a different place and he registers them as the Cannon children. Yeah. And then he moves them to a different hotel. So in this town is where Holmes is also, he's still trying to like, he's going to other realtors' offices now. And he's like, can I at least rent a house? Like I need a house. I need a house for these kids. I need a house.
No.
And yeah, well, they were like, I mean, you can rent a house, but you have to wait a couple days. We'll give you the keys in a few days. And one of the realtors said that he came in there and just freaked out and was like, give me the fucking keys to the house. I need them today, like right now. And she was like, damn, okay. And like gave him the keys. And so this house is called the Lancaster House. And he had like a stove delivered there. And he apparently went and had his surgical tools sharpened in town. Like he was doing some weird shit. And right after that, Holmes took Howard, the little boy, and all of his belongings into that house. And in his confession, he claimed that around 8 p.m. that night, they arrived at the house. He told the boy he must go to bed and then gave him a lethal dose of medicine. So then once the boy stopped breathing, he cut his body into pieces, fit it in the stove, used the gas and corn cobs to burn the body.
Hello? What?
Yeah, he said that was all done by 9 p.m. And he went to the train station and left for Chicago that night. And then the next day he returned and got Georgiana and the other kids and then put them on 2 separate trains for Michigan. I don't know why he put them on 2 separate trains, but he did. When they arrived in Detroit, Holmes signed him and his wife into a hotel under the name G. Howell and Wife. Then checked the other 2 kids into a hotel a few blocks away. And then the next day he moved the kids into a boarding house. So the kids are confused. Holmes is losing it. Holmes has written to Carrie and he's like, come to Detroit to be reunited with your kids and your husband. So she does. He writes her a letter and that's going to take a few days.
Yeah.
So within that few days, Holmes rents another house and he told the landlord it's for my sister and her children. So my sister's going to be coming here and her children and they're going to live here and I'll continue on with my life.
Yeah.
Meaning Carrie and the kids.
Yeah.
But when he's there, he digs a 3-foot by 4-foot hole in the backyard. And some of the neighbors noticed it. And it kind of seems like that's where he was planning on putting like Alice and Nellie. But instead, he told Carrie that Benjamin was waiting for her in Toronto. So at this point, he sends the kids back to Indianapolis. And then he tells Carrie that he'll be waiting for her once Benjamin comes back. And so Carrie's like, what the fuck is going on?
Hello?
Where are my kids? Where am I? Where are you? Where, like, what is going on? Because they're like, one's here and one's here and one's here and one's. It's just, this is why I said I have to read because it just gets too far. So even though Carrie is like, what's going on? She does go to Toronto and he goes to Toronto and to Canada. Then he tells them, oh, you just missed Benjamin. He just fled to Montreal. Yeah, like,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Gotta be quicker than that.
Yeah, my bad. So then Holmes returns to the train station. He gets Alice, Nellie, and he takes them to the house that he rented because he rented a house there as well. He told people he was renting this for his sister again.
Mm-hmm.
He rented the whole house for 6 months, but the neighbors later mentioned it was strange because all he had was a bed frame, a trunk, and apparently a mattress that not even a dog would sleep on. So I guess it's either really small or disgusting.
Or it's nasty. It's probably nasty.
Yeah. So then he goes and gets Georgiana from the train station and goes and spends a day in Niagara Falls with her before returning to Ontario and getting a hotel for them as Howell and wife. Yeah. So then he goes to the house that he rented and he has to borrow a shovel from one of the neighbors. And he told them he's going to fix a spot for potatoes in the basement. He dug a hole in the basement, went to Carrie and told her Benjamin fled to Ogden, New York. So she went back to the train. He goes back to the rental house and he takes a trunk to this house, cuts a small hole in it and feeds a hose from the trunk to the stove. And turns on the gas with the girls in the trunk.
Oh, they were in there.
He puts them in the trunk after that, yeah. He goes and does all this work and then puts Alice and Nellie in the trunk and gasses them to death.
Oh my God.
I
don't even think at this point he even knows what is going on.
No, he's just trying to get out of there at this point. He's just like, let me kill everybody and see where I can go.
Oh my God.
So once they were killed, he took them out of the trunk, stripped them down, and buried them in the basement.
In the potato hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that they did say was really weird because that's how he says that he kills them in his whatever. That's in his confessions. But something that is weird that comes up later on is that the house wasn't fitted for gas. And so they're like, okay, so how did you really kill him? Well, how did you really kill him? Because there's no gas in this house. Like you made up this whole elaborate story, but there's not even gas here. So what the hell?
We're just lying to lie again.
Yeah. He's losing it at this point because he leaves that house and he like shoves their stuff up into the fireplace and his goal was to like turn and like lights a fire, but he had shoved everything up in there so tight that like no oxygen could get through. So like
couldn't light a fire.
It didn't, not all of it lit on fire. Like some of it burned.
Dumbass.
But then he also left like some of Alice's things just like sitting out in the open. Like he was losing it. He wasn't paying attention to what he was doing. So when the next tenants arrived, they found these items, but like Holmes was already gone. And so they didn't really question it. Like they didn't really wonder what was going on.
Yeah, they're like, oh, somebody just left this stuff here, whatever.
Yeah. So his next move is to leave Canada and come back to the States, which was probably like his worst idea because now he doesn't have any of the kids. It's just him and Georgiana. And this is where detectives actually have authority to roam. They don't have authority in Canada. And so Holmes and Georgiana traveled to New York to meet Carrie so that she could meet her husband, finally. But again, Holmes told her, too small of a city. He doesn't want to meet you here. That's just not safe. So they had to go to Burlington, Vermont, which is where he went to his first college, which I was like,
why'd you go back there? Yeah.
Random.
He's giving this poor woman the literal run around the world and she's just going with it.
She just wants her family back.
At
like
one
she
point,
literally just wants her husband and her children. So she's like, you know what? Like this all makes sense. Clearly, like just whatever. I just want my husband and my kids back. Like, that's all I want. So she's been in Burlington, Vermont for a week waiting on her husband. And she has her daughter, Desi, and then her younger son with her. And now Holmes is like, oh, he's in Montreal again. And this is where it's like, people are like, why didn't he just like leave her and her two kids alone?
Yeah.
Like, why not just be like,
no more contact.
And just go to another country.
Yeah.
It's not like she can
She's
just
not gonna
chase
find
you
you.
down.
Yeah.
Like, or not another country. You
Anywhere.
could go to another country, but why not just go to like Washington?
Yeah. She's not going to find you. She's not going
Go
to find you.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it's like, was he enjoying like the torture of it all? Like,
yeah.
why is he doing this? But now it's November 5th. So we've been doing this for like a year. This is just going and going and going. And he left Carrie in Burlington, Vermont, and he goes to Gilmanton. He goes home. He goes home and he tells everyone he's had amnesia for 6 years.
You're joking me. This
He
is not real.
He explains that his bigamy, because he got married 50,000 times, is because of his memory loss. And he explains that within the last 2 or 3 months is when he started getting his memory back. And that's what made him want to come home and be Herman Webster Mudgett again. Yeah,
He's like, all right, we're starting over. I got to start all the way back from the beginning.
He basically had said once he got out of college or something like that, that there was a train wreck that he was a part of. And he's had amnesia for 6 years. And when he got home, they were like, oh my God, I'm so happy to have you home. And that's great. And then he only stayed home for 2 days and then he left again.
They're like, oh, there he goes.
I'm like, why not just stay why did you do that at all?
Yeah, why even go back there?
So then, right before he's leaving to go to Boston, he meets Georgiana and sends Georgiana a telegram and he's like, meet me in Boston. So they meet on November 13th and checked into the Adams house, which I guess is a boarding house, as Mr. and Mrs. H.M. Howell. So he's using Howell a lot for them. But the next day, they check into a different boarding house, and unbeknownst to Holmes, the detectives track him from Gilmanton to Boston and went directly to the police department. But the police didn't feel the warrant was super strong that they had on him. They said, we can probably get him, but we're not going to hold him. So we need to do something else. And so the detective goes and gets the warrant from Fort Worth as well. So now there's 2 warrants and it's like, okay, this will work.
We got to get him. Yeah.
So on November 17th, 1894, Holmes left the boarding house to go on a morning walk, and he was surrounded by the police, and they were like, let's go talk at the station. And he acted confused and tried to swindle his way out of it. And then he realized, like, this isn't going to work. Yeah. So then you remember how I said, like, at one point he was like, oh, he's gotten tipped off for the murder of Benjamin. And so he's like, I'm going down there for murder. Yeah. But then it just ended up being for the insurance fraud. And so he was like, oh, heck yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was me.
And then admitted to it. And he told them the whole story, but admitted that it was Peitzel and claimed it was a cadaver and blah, blah, blah. Like, he told them, like, yeah, I did kill the guy, but, like, it was just for...
Yeah, for insurance fraud.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I murdered him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And so he had told them that he had moved the cadaver in a trunk. And so the investigators were like, okay, I'm going to go test that theory out and see what happens. And they said that no matter how you took the cadaver out of the trunk after traveling for 24 hours with this cadaver, could you lay it down flat? So they were like, your story doesn't make sense because he was laying down flat. Yeah. So then at this point, the insurance company is like, okay, so it actually is Benjamin Peitzel, right? Like, you did actually do this. Then they arrest Carrie too, because they think she's in on it. And she was like, she was in on it on the insurance fraud part of it, but she didn't know that her husband was actually dead. Yeah. And so she was questioned and wasn't super forthcoming, which only made her look even more guilty in the fact that, like, her husband is dead. But the husbands did break it down, and they were like, okay, so she does know about the fraud, but she does not know about the actual death of her husband. So then on November 19th, which is the 2 days later, a grand jury indicted Holmes for conspiracy to cheat and defraud the Fidelity Company. The following day, they were extradited to Philadelphia for trial. Once they put together that the body was actually Benjamin, they quickly realized the 3 children could not be with their father, because they were like, oh, well, this whole time they thought that Benjamin was actually part of the fraud or whatever, and that maybe the kids
were with him.
Like, that's where Carrie thought her kids were this whole time.
So she probably told them that.
Yes.
Yeah, the kids are with him.
And so they're like, holy shit, where are these kids at? Now that Holmes has been arrested, the story of his insurance fraud is out there, and the gruesome murder is out there. And so people are like, I know that guy. But not by that name.
Yeah,
I know him as Bob and Craig and everybody else.
Yeah.
And in Texas, people started connecting the fact that like Minnie and Nanny, and that like started up that because Minnie and Nanny are from Texas, and they were like,
oh, we know them.
They were with him.
Yeah.
And so by the time Holmes reached Philadelphia on the 21st, he had talked about Minnie a lot to the detectives and people around him. He had told them that Minnie had been in with him and her sister visited a lot, but one time Minnie got jealous of Nanny and killed her, and that they placed her in a trunk and drowned her, and then he paid Minnie to go to Europe, which is where she is now.
Not also dead in the trunk in the river.
Yeah. Wherever they are, yeah. So many people started to get to the where like, okay, we don't believe you anymore.
Wow.
And
how many years later? Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And so at this point, enough stories have come forward that they determined Minnie was missing now too. And Holmes did not help the suspicion because the story about where Minnie was changing. Because like I said, he had just said that she was in Europe, but before he had said she went off to get treatment for mental health, and no one knows.
None of it lines up.
Yeah. Yeah. He had, the aunt had gotten the letter that they were all going to travel together. So it's just like, what the fuck? But then there's also people who are like, oh, well, we talked to Minnie recently. Like, we had seen her with him, and it was because Georgiana was letting people call her Minnie. Yeah. And so everyone's like,
who's that girl?
Just what is going on? Yeah. So Holmes spent the winter of 1895 in jail. And while in jail, police officers had learned his history between different cities and boarding houses and aliases. And then there was this Philadelphia detective who had been following him from the beginning. And so he goes door to door. He's like, okay, I'm going to go figure out where the fuck these kids are at. And he goes to one house and he's like, hey, or he's going to all the real estate agents. And he's like, okay, like literally in that city where Holmes had done all the real estate shit too. And he's like, I need to go, there was this guy, a picture of him or whatever. Yeah. And there was one girl and she was like, yes, he came to this house. And so he goes to this house and the family's living there and they're like, oh, that explains the odd pile of dirt in the basement. And so they go down there and it's actually not even a house that he had actually had anything to do with, but they like dug up this whole basement.
There was nothing.
But then he eventually does find the right house and he goes to the neighbor. You go to the neighbors first asking questions and they're like, oh yeah, he said that he was getting a house for his sister and her kids, and he needed my shovel, and he was going to do a plot in the basement for potatoes.
Yeah.
And the detective goes and finds the girls. So he's digging with the shovel, and then he kind of hits to where and he goes to his hands and knees.
This detective's like, oh my God, I need a drink.
Give me 12 beers. Immediately. What is it? Immediately. 14 of them.
14 of those right now, immediately.
Yeah. Okay, so whenever the remains are found, now they're like, okay, so where's the little boy? Because we still weren't able to find the little boy.
Oh, yeah. It was
and Holmes is like, I don't know. Mr. Hatch had them, and it's Minnie's friend. And I had paid him to take them to Europe. I don't know how they're dead. I don't know. And the detective's like, I just found these 2 bodies.
Yeah.
Just where's the boy at?
Yeah, just tell me.
The boy's remains are never found, but it's most likely because he straight up cut the little boy up in a bunch of pieces and burned him, and then
who knows what?
Buried him in the yard or put him somewhere else. Like there's a bunch of different things on, I think, like a dumpster or something like that. But
yeah, you ain't finding those remains.
Yeah. So then people are like I said, this is all over the news, and it's made its way back to Chicago, and people are like going around where the murder castle was and trying to find remains. Because I don't know if the murder castle was demolished at this point, because right now where the murder castle was standing is a post office. And so there's like yard space. And so I don't know if it was demolished or if it had just kind of fallen to ruins at this point in time. But there was someone that said that they were in the murder castle, like I guess near the basement or something like that. And they dug around and they found a stove, and it had some of Minnie Williams' things in it, like her pocket watch and stuff like that. So
oh shit, she
most likely had actually just been burned alive in there, and Nanny was probably burned like that too. She probably wasn't thrown in the river. That was probably just part of his elaborate. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to like catch up on all this stuff is wild.
The trail. That's what's crazy to me. So while waiting to be between the indictment and the trial for the first murder of Benjamin Peitzel, Holmes writes his autobiography, which I've mentioned to you, like his memoir. And the trial started on October 28th. Holmes basically acted as his own defense attorney.
Of course he did.
Because, well, his attorneys were unprepared and had like basically gone to court and been like, hey, we need to do this a different day. And the judge was like, we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
And so Holmes was an idiot and stood for himself. And eventually he confessed for the second time that the body was Benjamin, but that he had died from suicide. And then it was followed by a testimony from Desi, which is Benjamin's oldest daughter, and Carrie, the wife. And they just spent hours explaining what Holmes did to them. Like, he sent me here, and then he sent me here, and then he sent me here, and then these are my kids, and they're not here anymore. And like,
hello. What more do you need?
Yeah, and so the jury actually like was kind of confused and wasn't really sure what was going on because Holmes did his swindling bullshit. But then he ended up just saying so much dumb stuff that they were like, yeah, this guy did it because he's so confused. Like he has so much stuff going on.
Can't keep it straight.
Yeah, and they were like, okay, so he did it. And so it was just funny that during this, so, you know, they get called to go do their shit and then they come back to the judge with a verdict. They knew what they were going to say by like lunchtime, but they didn't return the verdict till 9 p.m. because they were like, we just wanted to be able to drink and hang out and eat snacks because like they provide them with like snacks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, we were just in there like shitting around, like stressing this guy out for hours. We were just hanging out.
Oh my God, I love that.
But clearly they came back and they were like, yeah, this guy's fucking guilty as hell.
Yeah.
But apparently it shocked Holmes. Like he thought he was getting away with it.
Well, of course he did. He can do no wrong. He's a perfect angel.
Yeah. So November 30th is when he goes back for the sentencing phase, and the judge is like, you will be hanged to the gallows. Yeah, but gavel bang, like you like to say in the...
Yes, gavel bang.
Yeah, so Holmes' defense did try and put in an appeal plea, but it was overruled, clearly.
Thank God.
Yeah, and on the date of May 7th, 1896 was set for Holmes' execution. And this is where he starts confessing to like all of his murders, and he says all this stuff. But and there was one source I'd seen that said that he did get paid by a newspaper to like go over everything, and he was like, I killed 28 people, and they went and like investigated it, and like at least 2 to 5 of the people that he confessed to killing were actually still alive.
Oh my God.
So he just
has an addiction to lying.
Yeah. But there was also like a lot of his stuff was like overplayed when it came to the newspapers because it was a time called like yellow journalism or something like that. And it was where the newspapers would come up with like all these taglines to try and draw you in.
Yeah, like tabloids.
Yes.
Clickbait.
And so, yeah, literally like TMZ.
Yeah.
And so it was like hard to do research without getting sucked into
the fake stories.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why he was killing all those people. I mean, I do for like the beginning for insurance money, but then he just like kind of lost it.
Yeah, he just went after it. I think anyone who got too close.
How many people did he kill?
He killed? At least I would say Julia and Pearl. I would say Emmeline.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Minnie and Nanny for certain. And then I would definitely say the three kids. So I would say at least 8. Like those are at least 8 for sure. And then
they were
probably
all,
3 from his childhood.
And they were all people that were like close to him that he knew. It wasn't like he was just like going on a murder spree. This was like over like a really long period of time.
I think anyone who got too close and knew, and Benjamin.
Oh yeah.
I think anyone who got too close and knew too much was a liability. So like I think Minnie probably found out shit she probably shouldn't have found out. And that's probably why he was like, well, you're done.
Gotta go.
And then Georgiana, there's no telling why he never killed her, but I think she spent enough time away from him. But I also think he probably really liked her. And I think she probably really went along with all of it. Because she wasn't complaining when he was moving them around town to town to town with 12 kids in tow, you know?
Yeah.
So because I would have been asking questions. I would have been like, why do we have this guy's kids?
Yeah, I would be curious to hear from
her. I think Georgiana like moved on and got married again. Like,
yeah.
I think she kind of stayed out of all of it, but
also the documentary.
Yes. It's called American Ripper. I would watch that. And then that's got more of that one's more based on Jack the Ripper. It's more of it is H.H. Holmes, but it's more trying just to prove that whole it's like an 8-part episode, 8-part series.
You were wrong.
Yeah, and it's literally he like exhumed the H.H. Holmes body and everything.
Oh.
Like paid to exhume the body. Yeah.
Wow.
Because they were like, if he's not actually in this casket, because there was also theories that H.H. Holmes paid somebody off and didn't actually get hung.
That would make sense.
But I didn't say this. His death was one of the slow, excruciating ones. It's one of those where your neck doesn't actually snap.
Oh, they don't just like kick you off a stool?
Oh, they did, but his neck didn't actually break. And so he suffered for like 15 minutes. They said he was still like twitching and shit for 15 minutes. And then they said let his body hang there again for another 15 minutes before they took him down.
To make sure.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
There was some theory that, of course he swindled his way because they put a bag over your head. So there was some theory that it wasn't actually his. Yeah. And he had actually been asked to be buried in to be cemented in to avoid his grave robbing. He's like, I don't want that to happen to me. And I'm like, oh, but it can happen to everybody else.
But you did it to everybody else.
Yeah. Oh. So there was whole theories on that. And I think they actually had to break concrete and stuff like that to exhume his body or I'm going to have to watch that. Yeah. It's just on the History Channel. Like you get on your computer on the History Channel. It's free. And I did get the Ghost Adventures episode that you wanted for Lee Sober Shapiro. You can log into that too. It's on
sweet.
I paid for Discovery Plus again for a few days.
I need to watch it.
$5 a month.
Yeah.
I'll cancel it again later. But they were doing other investigations throughout the murder castle or their murder dungeon, whatever the hell it's called.
The museum.
They were doing that. They were doing different places at the same time. So there was just a lot going on. And my attention span was not there. But yeah, that is Herman Webster Mudgett. And I'm sorry that it was a little bit everywhere and a little chaotic. There's just literally
so much that he did. He was a literal psychopath, narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, all the things, all of it.
Lying shithead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With amnesia.
For 6 years.
Get the fuck out of my face with that. Yeah. That's crazy. Goes home for 2 days just to be like, hey, by the way, I didn't do any of this.
Why did you even go home? He should have just gone home and stayed home and they probably would have never figured it out.
He needed to lie.
Yeah. I guess he needed to make up some excuse to his family to try and make it seem viable. But really, that's like the number one thing is like that people are like, if you didn't want to get caught, you should have just stayed in Canada.
Yeah. You were chilling there. Nobody was going to get you.
He'd have been better off just Canada.
But he would have done something in Canada. Yeah. And then the Canadian.
My favorite thing is that I learned about Texas and I was like, didn't work here, buddy.
Did not work here.
No.
That's crazy.
I love that. That's so Texas though for you to be like, whatever the hell you're doing, you're not doing
Don't mess
here.
with Texas.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
It's true.
yeah, that was our really long, really scattered episode. And I doubt that anyone's still listening because it is so crazy.
No, they want to know what happened at the
It's
end.
just so hard to follow.
Because I would.
Maybe I can make some graphics to
So,
go
yeah,
along with
he
the video.
Killed a bunch of people, swindled a bunch of people, lied a bunch of times, and got caught.
Yeah, after the murder castle in Chicago, he basically ran rampant for years. Like, I think he stayed in one city for like a week, and then he'd go to another city for a week, and then another city for a week, and that's just
I just cannot imagine that.
No.
That makes me nauseous.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, it ultimately seems like his demise was that he was a money-hungry scoundrel. Because he went after women for their money, and then everything he did was to make money. And the whole reason he got in trouble is because he never wanted to spend his money.
Yeah, well, and he just like continuously failed.
Yeah. He probably, if he had just put his brain to one good thing, it probably would have worked. He sounds like he has the biggest case of ADHD I've ever heard in my
Dude,
life.
for real. For real.
I saw a video the other day and it was like my ADHD hobbies or whatever. And it's like clay earring makings, macrame, something else. And I'm like, oh, I've done all
That's
of that.
me.
I've done it all. I felt so targeted. And it was like in the order that I'd done it all in too. I was like,
Oh, that's so funny.
get me out of here.
Gotta go.
I think we found something that keeps my ADD in line. This keeps me on track. I actually
really
enjoy it,
helps.
so it's working.
Yeah. You get all those jumbled up thoughts out.
Yeah. I also saw a thing yesterday. It was like, whoever thought it was a good idea to give me a podcast was wrong. I like to talk too much. And I was like,
Me. Guilty.
let me just yap.
Guilty.
Yeah.
That's me. All right. Well, I am about to pee my pants.
Yeah.
So I've been fidgeting for the last 15 minutes because I'm trying. My bladder's going to explode.
My body hurts.
But it's good stuff, man. That's crazy.
I need to go home and just take medicine and sleep for the rest of the day.
I'm gonna watch some documentaries on this crazy guy because I need to see it. I need to see what's happening.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go home and edit this so we can have it out on time tomorrow.
Woohoo!
And I'm sorry that nothing has been coming out on time. Last week, whenever I finally went to put it out on time, my computer crashed twice in the middle of the night.
We're doing too much.
I tried to upload both things on YouTube and Spotify at the same time, and my computer said, and I didn't realize it because I just went to bed. And then I woke up at 6 a.m. and I tried it again, and my computer crashed again. And I was like, one at a time.
One at a time.
And I did YouTube first because that's where majority of our views are. And then I did Spotify. So
it comes out anyway. It's fine.
we get there.
We get there eventually.
We need to record in advance ×5 so we don't have to worry about this.
Yes. We're chasing our tails right now, but we'll be fine. We'll get there.
Nobody likes us anyways. It's fine.
Yeah, nobody was watching this anyway. I'm watching it. That's about it, probably.
I know Aaron the other day had it on his iPad and his phone and the TV because I was like, you never watch and support me. I just need the view time. And he literally let every single one of our episodes run on all because he has his
a guy.
Well, he has his old phone, his iPad, and he had the TV, and he was just on his phone. And so he was just playing on his phone and had it all running on silent. I was like, you could at least listen. And he was like,
it's fine.
I'm doing what you need.
Yeah, that's fine. Honestly, it's close enough.
Yeah, it's fine.
Close enough.
Love him. God bless. But okay, leave an emoji of the mustache man if you feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
No one leaves emojis except me. I go on all 5 of my YouTube accounts and comment.
No shame.
No
shame. Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
All the things.
If you need to email us at sistersofthestrangepodcast@gmail.com. And I will see you on Friday because that's when we have to record again.
Yes. See y'all next week.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.